Hi, if you're autistic and you're able to camouflage or to mask your autism, that's a great thing, isn't it? Because you can do what everybody else does, right? Wrong. My name's Sarah Jane Critchley. I'm the author of A Different Joy, The Parent's Guide to Living Better with Autism, Dyslexia, ADHD and more. And in today's film, I'm going to tell you about why masking and camouflaging happens in autistic population and the cost and consequences of doing that, and what we can do to help and make it better. So, without further ado, let's get cracking. Let's have in a moment. Right. So there's a lovely piece of research which was led by Laura Hull called Putting on My Best Normal. And that's about how autistic people are camouflaging in social situations. It's released in 2017, so it's really current. And there are three things to think about. The first thing is, why would people not show up as themselves? And there's, the first thing that people said was to fit in, because we all want to present ourselves in the most positive light, don't we? And that's generally a good thing. And if you want to fit in, then being able to could be helpful. So far as it goes, that's fine. The other reason that people camouflaged or masked was to be able to get access to experiences that they wouldn't be able to have otherwise. So as the responder said here, to know and be known. Let's just think about that for a minute. To have to be somebody you're not in order to be able to get access to experiences that other people get and to feel that you have something in common with them. Now, I think that's a bit of an indictment, actually, and it's a criticism of the accessibility of those experiences, that someone feels that they have to be somebody else in order to do that. And I think it's above and beyond the kind of fake it till you make it idea, which was all around, well, let's just act as if it's all okay, because then it will be. It's a whole level beyond that. So that's why people would mask. But what about what is masking? How does it work? Well, some people would much rather refer to it as camouflaging. If you say masking, it kind of creates the impression that a mask is something you can take off and put on at will. And camouflaging, if it's something that's done for safety, is far more of an instinctive act. So you can see that in girls who are sitting at the corner of a group, who are kind of on the edge of the group, wearing exactly the same stuff, doing exactly the same things, copying and mimicking exactly what the popular girls do, but not ever really being part of that. So there's something very clear about trying to kind of fit in, and that's what it's like. There's two different aspects. One is around compensation, which is to make the most of what you've been given and to be able to be better than you are, to make life easier than it is, to be have access to things you wouldn't have. It's a compensation strategy. You know, if you're allowed to be yourself and be fully accepted, you wouldn't need to do it. But if you need to do that in order to get where you want to be, then there is an element of compensation in that. The other thing that people were talking about was specifically masking. So that's actually physically hiding behind what you want people to see. And that's what the girl in the example was doing. So she was sitting there and pretending to be normal, kind of desperately trying to fit in, rolling her skirt up, watching all the others, possibly not saying anything so much. Because when she says something, she gets it wrong. So she'll watch and just laugh along, because when people are laughing, she'll laugh too, but won't necessarily know why. And that's really uncomfortable. It's a really uncomfortable feeling. That's not being part of the group, that's kind of siding along, being alongside it. So what happens as a result of all this masking and camouflaging? Well, actually, it's not good. It's not good at all. The comments here that people quoted were, I fall to pieces. That's the consequence. People have a stereotyped view. So you'd want a mask in order to make sure that you feel safe. And I'm not my true self. I'm not my true self. Let's just think about the actual reality of that for a moment. If you have no scenario in which you can be yourself, in which you can feel safe to be who you actually feel you are, if you spent your whole life pretending to be something totally different, then that really takes a huge, huge price out of your selfhood, your being, your self-esteem. And it sets up something called cognitive dissonance, which is where you're saying and doing one thing and feeling something totally different. There's a clash between the two, and the two things rub along against each other and create friction and pain and unhappiness. So what's the consequence of all that? Well, one horrifically shocking study that was published in The Lancet last year, led by Sarah Cassidy and Jackie Rogers, found that in a group of people, both male and female, who were recently diagnosed with autism, so these would be adults, these weren't people who were identified as being autistic when they were children and given support, these were adults who had been masking and camouflaging their entire lives. She found that suicide is one of the leading causes of death in this particular group, in people with autism. Of those, 66%, 2/3 had thought about taking their own lives. 2/3. And over 1/3 had actually planned or attempted to do that. Life had become so difficult for them, so impossible for them, that was a good and positive way out from where they were standing at that point. That they felt that was the only way to resolve that issue. Now, I really don't think that's the case, but I absolutely understand how they can have thought that. Those who had been identified with Asperger's syndrome were the highest risk of attempting suicide, rather than those who are depressed. So in the normal population, the neurotypical population, there's a much stronger association between depression and suicide. In autism, it's between Asperger's syndrome and suicide. And those who are at the highest risk were autistic women without a learning disability. So these are very intelligent, bright, otherwise capable women who are really stressed and unwelcome and feel unsafe. So, masking comes at a hell of a price, so what can we do? Just 5 top tips here for supporting the camouflaged and the unmasked. So the first thing is we have to allow people to be themselves. We have to make it safe for people to be able to identify as something that isn't the same as everyone else. And how is that so difficult? Why is it that when we look at people who are amazing, who are incredibly successful, the things that make them successful are the things that make them different? So why on earth can we not allow that? We must start allowing that. We must allow people to be who they really are. We must learn to value authenticity over appearance. Being true to yourself, being correct and being honest has to be more valuable. We've got to create more safe spaces, places where people can be themselves. There will be scenarios, situations and places where it is not safe to be visibly different. But we have to create spaces where that is okay, so that there's always somewhere safe to come back to. And finally, 2 more, we need to share more positive role models of autistic people. There are more and more people coming out now as being autistic who are identified and out and proud and contributing huge amounts and absolutely wonderful. We need to share those examples. And I've got loads on my pages, loads in my book. Have a look and look them up. And finally, we need to really cheer on those people who are in the public eye who share their diagnosis. We've got to make it a positive thing. We've got to make it a joyful thing. We've got to celebrate it. We've got to celebrate the strength that it brings. So I really hope that you're going to join with me in doing that. Do it at every available opportunity. We must do this. Lives are at stake and it's important to get this right. Let's go for it. I'm sure we can do it together. Thank you so much for sharing your time. I look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care. Lots of love. Bye.